What's up, folks? This is Quentin, and this is iRacing GTE at Phillip Island with my league for a 30-minute race, starting dead last in P14 here. And some of you may notice that I chose the Porsche 911 RSR for this race. You can see going through turn 1 into turn 2 already at Phillip Island, making up a couple spots from the back. And my whole goal with this race was to see if I could make it up to the front of the pack by the end of the race. I didn't do a whole lot of practice, but then again, this is more of a recreational league, so who knows how much practice everybody else had. Here we see a huge lockup going through turn 4 into turn 5 now, and I think we'll get a little replay of the start because quite a bit has happened already. You can see I'm up to P11 by this point. So let's try to take a look back here at the start. Going through turn 1, already in front of a Corvette there behind. Going into turn 2, we'll talk about this later as well, but it's a very long, winding corner, and it takes a lot of discipline not to get on the throttle too early. But after doing a few laps, I managed to sort of get the hang of it. And then we see going into turn 4 here, already had that lockup going for the overtake on that BMW. And then side by side through here, luckily enough, the space was afforded, and I was able to whip past the outside there and get by for another spot. So making good progress already here. And I have to say that, honestly, I love racing in this league every week. It's a good bunch, and we always have a lot of fun. I usually don't start from the back, but I wanted to try something different, as we see a car that has spun out there. So that's another position gain for me, up to P10. So 4 positions in 1 lap. We're getting to the end of lap 1 now. And it's really about trying to hit my marks, being aware that at this point, the people I'm racing with are probably a bit slower, and they might have different brake markers. They might not have as many laps, although I didn't do that many myself. We did have a 30-minute open qualifying session before the race started, and I went out and probably did a dozen laps or so, but always made sure to get an off track at some point because I did want to start all the way at the back. As we can see, going through turn 4 once again on lap 2. And Phillip Island, you know, this is the first time I've raced at this circuit, so it definitely was a bit of a challenge getting up to speed here. It's not always clear where you're going, I would say, but getting some laps in really helped. So once you do get some laps in, I feel that it's not a super complex circuit, but that was only part of the challenge in this race. Another one was that I don't really race GTE cars at all in iRacing, so this was the first time I was really racing in a GTE. I had done some practice earlier, but no races in the past. So we can see coming into lap 3 now, and I'm sticking with P9 in front here, who has now caught up to P8, who is the infamous Banana Man in our league. He is a staple of our league, and he's quite the character. But anyways, we're getting through turn 2 here, up through turn 3, which is Stoner Corner, I believe. And then this turn 4, this was the part that I really liked, and it was a challenge. As we see, somebody has gone off there. Turn 4 could really bite you, but when you get in the flow at this circuit, I feel like it's so easy, and you know, you can kind of just get in that rhythm, which at this point I don't think I'm in a rhythm yet because I'm still stuck behind these slower cars, trying to follow, trying to stay close in case there's an opportunity, but at the same time I don't want to stay too close in case there is an incident, so I have enough space to get around them, because as you've seen, we've already had 2 people spinning out. But regardless, getting to the end of lap 3 here, coming through turn 12, the final corner, and I get a pretty good run on this Beamer ahead of me, and just have enough speed to basically box him in so he can't come out and or keep going because Banana Man is there. So kind of just pushed my way through that and made it a favorable situation for myself. And now hot on the heels of Banana Man. And coming up through 3, thinking about it, but obviously that's not going to work, but sticking on the outside here, kind of showing like, hey, I'm going to go for it. We actually both outbrake ourselves, almost going off the circuit, almost losing that place back to the Beamer that I just passed. But I'm just able to hold on to it. And I think it would be a good idea to look at a replay here. So we can see this is now back going through turn 12, the final corner, onto the front straightaway, getting that draft, and waiting for my moment to pull out alongside. There we go, into turn 1. And, you know, I think that was a good clean pass there, solid move. And now I'm just focused on turn 2, making sure there's no mistakes, and luckily I did such a good job that I got right up on the rear bumper of Banana Man here. And we can see trying to force my way around, kind of darting a little bit, and then we both outbrake ourselves. There might have been a little touch between us, but I really don't think it was much. We were both basically going to go wide there. He ended up going very, very wide off the track. I managed to just about keep it in one piece. But back into the cockpit here, so getting through about midway through lap 4. I believe this ended up being a 22 lap race. That's what it came out to for half an hour. And another thing that proved to be a challenge was car setup. So we pretty much always have open setups in this league, and that was the case for this race as well. However, I have never spent a lot of time tuning or messing with the setup on any car in iRacing. Honestly, I'm more one of those players or racers that wants to get in and just drive. And if it's a bigger event, maybe like the iRacing Petit Le Mans, I'll spend some time going out in practice sessions and tuning the car as I go and trying to figure it out. But for things like the league race, which is once a week, I don't have that much time to be on the sim every week anyways, so it's not really worth my time. Well, maybe it would be, but I don't use the time for sure. And so I end up, as we are getting close here, for pass on P4, and we actually get it done on lap 5 here. So that was a pretty good solid pass. I think again it was one of those, there might have been a little bit of contact, but you see that the Porsche ahead of me just got a little throttle happy on the exit of 4 there, and then I just kind of nipped down the inside, took the inside line through 6, and got through. So here we are, going through the rest of lap 5. But you know, like I was saying, I don't have a whole lot of time to mess with setups. I don't prioritize that. And so I basically just try to get a feel for the circuit and see what might be available. So iRacing has a few different setups available for the 911 RSR. And I think I just went with the high downforce. There's like a minimum downforce, low, medium, high, and maximum downforce setup. And I think I just opted for that high downforce because, you know, there is a lot of fast sections on the track where you want to be able to get up to good speed, but there's also so many flowing corners, especially like that turn 2, and then other places like turn 8 and 9, and then coming out of 11 going through 12, where I think it's better to just have that extra downforce and hope that it keeps the car planted so that you don't have to worry too much about the rear end coming out on you. So that's kind of why I went with that setup. And it seemed to be working pretty well so far here, so we're already up to 4th place from 14th, so that's 10 spots. Really can't complain. Honestly, I don't usually race towards the front, even in my league, just because, like I mentioned earlier, I don't get a whole lot of seat time. I don't use my rig, which I spent so much money on, nearly enough. I should definitely be spending more time on it, enjoying it, and racing, because I love to race. But that being said, we did get to race this time around, so we're going on to lap 7 now, closing in on Bob ahead of us in yet another 911. So it did seem to be a pretty popular choice, at least this week, because in the league we can obviously choose a different car each week, so I'm not sure what will come in the future. This was just round 2 of our league for this season. But anyways, we're going back into turn 4 once again, and why I love this corner so much is the rest of the track I feel is so flowing and cambered or inclined or declined to the point where you really have to be careful with your brakes. And like I was saying before, I don't have a lot of experience in these GTE cars. Usually what I drive is GT3 or GT4 or anything with ABS. I don't spend a lot of time in cars without ABS, so it's definitely a challenge whenever I get in a car without it, trying to make sure that I'm getting on that brake pressure just right and trying my best not to lock up, which I know I have done already a couple times. But overall, I'm pretty happy that I haven't made too many huge errors thus far. Now we're coming on, and you can see, I don't know if Bob here had the max downforce setup or something, but I definitely had a huge closing speed on him. So that was a really clean cut overtake just down the front straight. I think I got fully past him before we even got into turn 1 there. And then just trying to keep it clean through turn 2. Don't want to allow him to get back into it, but we see a little replay here. So this is coming into turn 10, which is another fun one. It's really just down a hill, and then you have this really tight right-hander, and now you have these double lefts for turn 11 and now 12 here, which are pretty much flat. Turn 11, I think I was lifting just a tad, and turn 12 is definitely flat. But yeah, you can see that closing speed I had. I'm not sure if he just lifted in 12 for some reason, so he lost a bunch of speed onto the front straight. But either way, it was a very easy, clean move. And now we can continue on, being in 3rd position and seeing who we can catch ahead. We can see that 2nd place is a couple seconds ahead of us, so that could be a realistic possibility. I know that the race timer here is a few minutes off, so I think we're probably only about 10 or 11 minutes into this half-hour race, so plenty of time to catch up there. However, the leader, Justin, you can see about, a shade over 8 seconds ahead. Unless I'm a lot faster, that's going to be a really tough challenge to make up that much ground. So we continue on into turn 10 here again, and you can see that Tom up ahead did have a little bit of a lock up there. And so I think a lot of people were struggling with that. Maybe I'm not alone in being somebody who usually drives cars with ABS on iRacing, but either way, then it's just a struggle for all of us, and even Steven in my book. So down the front straight into turn 1 once again, and on lap 9 now. So I feel like quite a bit happened early on in this race, and we're kind of settling down now. I'm trying to get in that rhythm. I think I've pretty much found it at this point. And just going with the flow of the track, trying my best to see if I can close in on Tom ahead, which looks like maybe a few tenths over the past lap, but there's not a whole lot in it, so it'll probably be a pretty big challenge just to catch up to Tom here. And going through turn 6 now, which is another interesting corner where I feel like if you get the line just right, it can really help you, because the exit of that corner dictates this whole run all the way up. So this is turn 9. So all the way up to turn 9, you have that run. So quite important to get a good exit there. But we're doing a solid job here, getting through turn 11 once again, and you can definitely hear I am lifting a bit. And then going through 12 completely flat, no problems there. And I do really love these GTE cars, even though they don't have ABS. It makes it more of a driver's car, obviously, which for me is a good thing. I like that. It doesn't mean it's not a challenge, right? But at the same time, it's more about just enjoying what you're doing, and I do really enjoy this. And turn 2 here, enemy number 1 is going wide there, so trying to keep it tight. I did a good job that time around as well. Like I said, I am getting into that flow, and that's what happens with this track. You just get in that flow. And into turn 4 once again. So turn 4, like I was mentioning earlier, a lot of the other corners have some camber, incline, decline, something where it means you have to be very careful with your brakes. But turn 4 is a different story. You can just go in there and slam down on the anchors. And obviously you have to be fast, because that's what the fast guys are doing. So it takes a lot of discipline. You know, every lap you have to kind of nail that and be prepared, and then the rest of the lap you have to remember to be more careful on the brakes, just because of the track surface itself and those elevation changes like I was mentioning. But you know, this race I did a good job, I think, executing on that, and we are slowly reeling Tom in here down to 1.3 seconds, and he's in the Corvette, so not a Porsche for once. And you know, I do think it's a shame that we don't see the GTEs more in iRacing, and I know that as a real life class, you know, in IMSA, it's dead at this point. But it was so cool to have these cars around. You know, I love the sound on this 911 RSR. That flat 6 just sounds amazing to me. And you know, I'm sure that V8 in the Corvette doesn't sound half bad either. So just, you know, GT3 plus basically in these cars. That's how I felt about it, at least when I was driving. Although I do typically drive the Mercedes AMG GT for the GT3 class, because I do find that the 911 GT3 car can be a bit of a handful, let's put it that way. But regardless, I do love 911s in general, and this RSR is no exception. And I think we can tell that I've become very fond of the car at this point, especially during this race, as another lap's gone by here and we just keep closing in on Tom ahead of us, down to basically half a second at this point. So at this point I'm strategizing, trying to figure out where my strong points are, where my weak points are, and also keeping out a close eye if Tom makes any mistakes that could open up any doors somewhere. But he has been driving very solidly so far, so I wouldn't really expect that at this point. I think if anything, he's actually a bit stronger most of the time through turn 4. I think towards the end of the lap is where I usually have more pace, although there through turn 6 it seems that I was able to gain. So this has been probably one of his more scruffy laps, which really helps me close in. Looks like apparently I'm 0.2 seconds behind at this point. And now I'm getting to that stage where I'm almost afraid to get any closer, just in case, you know, he lights up the rear tires coming out of one of these corners and spins it around. I want to have enough time to react to that, move out of the way, and not end up in some nonsensical collision. And so we're getting back onto the front straight. You see he pulled over to the side to defend a bit, try to make sure I don't get the draft. But I do have closing speed, pull out pretty close into turn 1, and the space is afforded, luckily. So I'd say that was a close one. He could have tried to hang it around the outside, although obviously there's not going to be a whole lot of grip there. But he was, I think, kind in affording me that space. So let's try to take a look back here at the setup for this pass. So we come out of 10, going through 11 here, and I'm staying really close. And one thing that I wasn't sure on until we started racing was the aero wash on these cars, because obviously compared to something like a Formula car, you wouldn't expect the aero wash to be very bad. These cars obviously have a lot of downforce compared to something without wings and diffusers, but overall it still shouldn't be groundbreaking. So that was something I noticed in the race, though. It did feel like there was a little bit of aero wash once you did get really close. But we made it by there cleanly enough, like I said, Tom giving that space. And so now we're on lap 13, and you can see that the gap to Justin in first place remaining about the same. It was maybe a little bit over 8 seconds last time we checked, and it's still, yeah, hovering right there around 8 seconds. And so we'll close out lap 13 here, getting up into second place. And so that's not a bad return, I think, going from 14th to second in 13 laps, or maybe a little bit over half the race. I think we have maybe 18 or so minutes left at this point in the race out of the or no, we have maybe 12 minutes left to go in this race out of the half hour. So yeah, a little over halfway. But like I mentioned earlier, this circuit, it was just such a fun challenge to learn it, to come to grips with it. And as I kind of alluded to earlier, nothing really happened the rest of the race. I drove fairly clean. Justin in the lead drove just as clean as me, though, so you can see the gap here still hovering right around 8 seconds. I think he had a small little lockup into turn 4 on the last lap here, but he was so far ahead that, you know, there was no way that was going to give me any sort of sniff or opportunity for the lead. So the gap did go down a little bit, yeah, down to about 6.5 seconds here, and I think I pretty much maintained that to the end of the lap, but nothing major. So it was a good, clean, solid race. I didn't make any big mistakes. I was able to carve my way through the field on what is a very fast, flowing track that I ended up really enjoying. When I was first starting to practice, honestly, I hated this track, but I learned to love it. Honestly, it was great, and there was plenty of good passing opportunities, so at least for me there was. So it was a good time, and you know, I'm just having fun with my league at this point, and happy to bring home a second place for this round. We'll see what comes in the future, but overall, it was a great race, and I think I proved that without too much practice, I can still sort of get up towards the front, which is new for me, not something I'm used to. But I'll try to come back with more videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.